Hare Krishna, my name is Ivy. I am a loving devotee of Lord Krishna. I actually was not given a prompt for today. I'm going to just be reading from the Bhagavad Gita, and then I'm going to preach off of what I read. First though, let's chant. If you don't know how to chant, sit back and enjoy the chant with me and check out my video on how to chant. It is such a beautiful mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Always remember that when we chant that mantra, we are calling upon the love of Krishna, the peace of God seated within our hearts. Remember with the mantra, if you don't know this already, the mantra's vibration calls upon Krishna, calls upon the peace of God seated within our hearts. And it calls on him in a way where he can work with us and be there with us and support us through our purification process and through our process to self-realization. It's a universal process of finding God. I do quickly want to share something that is very important about me. I do this because I love Krishna. I love my God so much. All I ever want to do is talk about him. I really... and I just hope that with these videos, I can show you how to find him within you and how to fall in love with him too. Because it saved my life. I've watched it save the lives of others, and I know it could save yours. Allow me to start first with the word sacrifice. I know there was a time where people sacrificed animals, and oftentimes when we think of sacrifice, we think of something very painful to give up, but doing it for the better of someone else. Or we kind of think of sacrificial offerings that are usually pretty gruesome, or what we view as gruesome. But this is not about our material aspect of what the word sacrifice is. This is about what Krishna's definition of sacrifice is. You'll start to find as you continue through your journey of Krishna consciousness and purifying yourself, you'll be presented with opportunities to make a sacrifice. Your sweet Lord will say to you that you can make the sacrifice if you would like. A sacrifice between a living entity and our sweet Lord Krishna is a sacred one. It is something that initiates an even deeper, loving relationship. It is very commonly discussed that we must trust in God, which is very true, and Krishna wants us to do that. However, no one really talks about how. Krishna likes reciprocation, and if we can trust him, he wants to be able to trust us too. When we truly love someone, we're willing to give up things for them. The way we love God should not be any different. I remember one of the first times I ever felt Krishna's presence, and there was pain with it, and I started to cry. And I asked him, I said, is this how you feel all the time? We don't ever really think to empathize with God. Instead, we oftentimes blame him, or we wonder why bad things have happened here. We think of God as someone that at any moment could do anything he wanted, and he chooses not to. Each and every one of us at some point in time, amongst all of our lives, thousands of lives, we decided to leave our God and to come here to experience our own individuality. And Krishna loved us so much that he gifted us that. Him allowing us to come into this illusion where we literally forget our love for him. And he has to sit back and he has to watch us find him again. That was a sacrifice he made. Why did he do it? Because he loves us. He made us in his image. He wanted us to experience creating, individuality, love. He wanted us to experience. What made this a sacrifice is that Krishna himself could not have predicted what we would do with that free will. He didn't want to set that in stone for us. because he wanted us to be able to create. We hear the quote that we are made in God's image, but you have to stop for a minute and think about what that means. If we were made in his image, who was his example? Who was the model? We were made after him. So everything that we experience, everything that we know, everything that we are doing here in the material world is what the Bhagavad Gita calls a perverted reflection of our forgotten love for God. The more Krishna conscious you become, the more you awaken to the truth, the fact that you are an individual spirit soul, that you have never been separate from the spiritual aspect of our existence. It's been an illusion. Once you come closer and closer to that, taking it from an understanding to an experience, you'll start to see what you and our sweet Lord have in common. And you'll be able to understand why he loves us. And you'll be able to experience him actually loving you unconditionally. It's very easy for us to wonder if we are insignificant, to question if our prayers will be heard because there's so many of us and God has so many of us to hear. We speak of this all-loving God, and I think the question that I would like to ask is, would an all-loving God really have so many babies that he would not be able to answer all of their prayers? Sounds kind of messed up. There is a piece of Krishna that has been made for each and every single one of you. There is a piece of him that cries out for you. There is a piece of him that aches for you, that misses you, and longs for you to come back home to him. And he's not going to force you because he gave you free will. Coming into union with God, coming into union with the love of God is something that is mentioned amongst different religions. However, what is happening in the West is that there is a very, very, very strong decline in religious practice. We're heading towards an irreligious society. The reason why I so openly and with so much love share Krishna consciousness is because it is the answer. With Krishna consciousness, you can create your relationship with God anywhere, at any moment, wherever you are. With the mantra, with his love, and with you going through this process of relearning life and why you're here, what it really means to be alive. That is religion. People hear religion, they think organized religion. There's a lot of mixed feelings towards that word. Real religion, originally, is a path that one can be given so they can find their love for God. Sometimes I do wonder how much it hurts Krishna watching us all forget him and watching us think that living from our false sense of selves and that everything we experience around us based on sense gratification or chasing material happiness is somehow better than his unconditional love. The material world is not a simulation. We are not living in a simulated reality. We're not, quote unquote, not real. There is nothing more real than this right here. Please tell me something that could possibly be more real than this moment here. Really, take a second. What could possibly be more real than this moment here right now? Working with clients and something I have also personally experienced, many of them have experienced disassociation, depersonalization, feeling like they aren't real, like they don't belong here. Oftentimes they end up getting diagnosed. It kind of gets pushed off and they have to continue to try to cope with it in a way where they have no spiritual aspect at all. That feeling of disassociation, that feeling of, whoa, what is this? It is a trigger, it's a catalyst for making us question our existence, for making us question why we are doing what we are doing. It's not that we are living in a false world. We are living from a false sense of self. Almost all of the world's population is going through life believing that they are a body, as in they only can conceive of the material conception of life. The material world wasn't created for us to suffer. The material world was created for us to enjoy. And over time, due to material nature, there started to be effects. There was a time amongst human society where spiritual leaders were considered very essential. And there were people who were in charge of passing this kind of knowledge along to keep people on the path of finding their love for God. There was a time where people understood that's why we're here, and we have forgotten. Almost every single one of us is going through life completely missing an entire aspect of who we are, and it's making us miserable. People are going years and years of their life with no sense of self, and instead of sitting and addressing it, they have no choice but to continue to follow through with their material commitments. They have bills to pay, families to feed. And so they go into a survival mode. And instead of living, experiencing being alive, they fall into darkness, ignorance. And one day people wake up and they realize that they have no idea who they are. They have no idea where the time has went, what they've done with their lives. The material world is full of misery, and the reason why is because we are not meant to stay here. The Gita, it mentions sense gratification and what that means. Sense gratification is us craving satisfaction based on our senses, our material senses, because we don't know the spiritual aspect of ourselves and what a spiritual life and what knowing ourselves as an individual spirit soul can bring to us, which is no one's fault. This has just been over time. It is unfortunately died out over time, this information. It is very important that we understand that we are living for this idea that we can obtain material happiness. Material happiness is temporary. Think of it this way. I'm going to put it in kind of a way that's a little, but this will hit us all. Think of a time in your life or other people's lives or who you've watched on TV where they want to get laid. And it's like the biggest deal in the world when they finally get laid, right? And they finally feel better about themselves. You know, they have a new sense of confidence. Maybe they can start dating again. Maybe it helps that, there's all kinds of things that people, can experience from getting laid. But what happens a month later when they, again, haven't been laid in a while? They're, again, not feeling satisfied. And then people, again, go out and repeat the same cycle. Sleep with someone they don't know. They feel kind of gross about it. Take in the satisfaction they experienced, with those chemicals in our brain. It felt great, I'm a human being. I've been there. But those chemicals wear off. We don't crave sex. What we crave is true love. What we crave is the unconditional love that only our God can introduce to us. When the Gita says a perverted reflection, what it is saying is that we are always trying to act out our need, our love, our deep longing for God and the love of God through material activities. I pray with all my heart you hear me, because this is a great threat to people who are in charge of large corporations, people who really thrive on materialism, people who are quote unquote in control. If we give this method to everyone and show them that they can find happiness within themselves and that they don't need anything else outside of them, that all they need is this mantra, it's gonna, ooh, that was a big moth. It's gonna shake some things up. If you're watching this video, I'm asking you to please introduce someone to this mantra. Let's get it out fast. Let's get it out before it can be shut down. We all deserve to find and remember our love for God. We all deserve to remember who we really are. A woman I once worked with, she taught me a lot. And she said to me, it's not about becoming something. It's about remembering. And that is why every single one of us, all of us, are capable of achieving God consciousness. And that's why every single one of us is capable of not just change, but complete transformation. Because seated within all of our hearts is our peace of God. This is a method to finding our love for God that no one can take from you. This is a method of finding our love for God that you can practice in any way you want to, as long as you do it with love and devotion. If you're already part of a church, you don't have to change that. As long as you're following a form of scripture, that is completely okay. That's amazing. That is a path to God. Christ consciousness is Krishna consciousness. However, I highly recommend that whatever you already do, start to incorporate the mantra. The Hare Krishna mantra was prescribed to us for this time, 525 years ago. He came here as an example devotee to show us a path through chanting, how we can remember and find our love for God through ecstatic love. And he also left the path of experiencing the transcendental pleasures, the transcendental pastimes of watching others remember their love for God. And what it does is it has left us this beautiful opportunity to experience a whole new kind of pleasure that the Vedas call the nectar of devotion. I'm a spiritual coach. I coach people by using the path of bhakti, the path of love and devotion, Krishna consciousness. And I will directly tell you that there are times, ask any of my clients, where I will randomly ditch them. I know that sounds gruesome. However, my job is to show people that they are able to rely on their own God for their answers, on themselves. And my goal is to teach people how to not need anything else outside of themselves to bring them comfort, to tell them the truth, that they only need to hear the voice of their God within them. My goal is to get people to rely only on the truth that comes from their own Krishna consciousness. There are some truths that only the God within us can show us. There are some truths that can be introduced to you by a spiritual master. However, they don't really exist, especially in the West. A spiritual representative of Krishna is said to be as good as learning from Krishna himself. But that is, again, not available to us. So chanting that mantra will call on Krishna, and he will teach you these things that everything else you've been trying to find the answer through cannot. For us to actually be able to comprehend spiritual wisdom, we have to know the part of us that is spiritual. You also have to keep in mind that it is not possible to love something you don't know. People feel like they have to say that they love God, and to be direct with you, he doesn't want you to do that. You really think God wants your fake love? But I promise you that there is a personal relationship with him waiting for you. And it is the most rewarding experience a human being could possibly have. I always searched for God. I always wanted to know the truth. And when I found it, when I found a way that really worked, when he showed it to me, I just knew it would just be a disgrace for me to not tell people about it. I've watched so many people suffer. So many people, they literally are incapable of experiencing joy because they've fallen so dark, so deep into ignorance that they can't escape their own thoughts. The mantra will pull anyone out. Anyone can read scripture. Anyone could go to church. But not everyone is going to take the time to fall in love with God. And that is the truth. Intention is everything. You have to think, are you looking for God? Are you looking for the truth? Or are you looking to experience something mystical? Are you looking to experience something such as witchcraft, feeling in control? Are you looking to only look at a certain portion of what Krishna really is by saying spirit and calling everything around you God? It's not that I'm speaking down to you. I'm pointing out to you that that is just how deep in this we are. Think about the Bible, how many rules there was to follow. Literally, Krishna loves us so much that he's like, hey, forget all of that. All I need you to do is just chant this mantra, please. Just chant this mantra, and I promise I will come to you, I will liberate you, and I will get you out of here. Every single one of us is capable of chanting that mantra. You don't have to sit down and close your eyes. You can chant that mantra wherever you want. And you know what's so cool is that this is a time where you don't have to give up anything. You don't have to sacrifice your life to find the love of God and to find enlightenment, what liberation really is. You just have to be here. You chant that mantra and you allow him to do the work for you. Look into my devotee eyes. I promise you this works. There's not a single person that I've introduced this mantra to that this did not work for. So please listen to me. Chant and be happy. Let's get out of here. Let's go back to Godhead. This world is full of miseries. It really is. And it's beautiful for us, especially those of us who can see the bright side in everything. But there is a world out there. There's a planet waiting for us where we don't have to try so hard. And not only is there one in the afterlife, there's actually one right here where we already are. The spiritual platform exists right here. We've never been separate from the spiritual world. It's an illusion. Matter and spirit are not separate. We are spiritual. We're individual spirit souls. We're not our bodies. We're not material bodies. We are souls within these bodies. We are spiritual. It's not about aligning your consciousness into a higher dimension. That's not what it's about. It's not about gaining mystic abilities. It is about what will really actually satisfy our souls, and that is true unconditional love. It was purposely created that way. There are going to be so many things in this world that we think will satisfy us, so many things in this world that we really think if we could just get it, if we could just finally get there, if we finally reach that goal, we could be happy. And people do reach these goals, and guess what? Maybe they feel great at first, but then they make a new goal. They're no longer happy. Krishna consciousness is a way to be happy always. And again, it's for all of us. Thank you so much for listening. It means everything to me. I'm going to be posting a lot more. I have so much to share with you. I've learned so much over my last few years of learning this process, and I cannot wait to introduce it to you and to everyone I possibly can. I know we don't know each other, but I do actually genuinely love you. If you've made it to the end of this, thank you so much for committing to this path. And thank you so much for never giving up. Thank you so much for always looking for the truth. Know that there is a piece of me that really does love you. Don't forget to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And always remember that whatever you do, do it with love.